So
Okay, so it sounds a bit like Great Egg Race so far.
well, this is just one of the tasks. So it was find a way to boil an egg. So to get that timer. So one of the guys basically said, right, okay, well, I'd like a load of Maltesers and a load of like What's-Its and a load of like various bits of food, and I'm going to lay out enough for 5 minutes worth on the table, and then you've got to eat one of them every second, and you are then the human timer. So at the end of it, you put the egg in the water, set it going, and then just started eating all these things, one every second. And then when he was done, he'd take the egg out. So that was just like his approach to it. But then you had 5 people with 5 completely different approaches to this one challenge, and there's loads of it's really really quirky things like that. And one of them was it was another kind of setting a timer thing, and someone basically had the guy sat there it's like the host's assistant essentially had him sat there with a bag of water above his head, and they just poked a hole in it and then waited until the bag was empty, and that was your timer. When you're done, then you lift the egg out.
Water clock, yeah.
And that was exactly it. That was just one of the tasks, but it's so bizarre seeing how under pressure the human brain comes up with some weird muddle thing. But Taskmaster is absolutely one of the best shows on TV at the minute.
I shall have to try and catch that. I shall.
We've got a couple of watch parties we need to do as future Makers Waffle episodes. I think Futurama, Taskmaster.
Well, we've got to record a couple of episodes for Christmas, and because we've already kind of decided for the benefit of the audience that because we are now live, by the way, Tyler.
Yes.
Yeah, we do dive straight in. We don't bother. We don't bother with introductions. Yeah. Because we've got the Sunday the 26th of December, and then which is Boxing Day, and then Sunday the 2nd of January, I think. So we said we're not going to do those kind of live, but we'll probably try and record something beforehand and kind of put up so that people who need to kind of escape from their family
start the show and just like do it as a live like this, and then just press play on the recording.
Yeah, well, you can do pre-recorded with StreamYard, so you can put a pre-recorded one up. I don't know if you get the option to kind of do here's the thing, but it probably is. Might have to have an experiment.
I can do it with OBS.
Yeah. I was thinking that if we just kind of literally just be able to set it and then kind of just go away.
Yeah.
Comment every now and again in the comments people think we're there. Yeah, that could be the approach to take.
I mean, how do people know that this is live now?
Well, this is true. It is recorded next Wednesday, so yeah. It's
Charlie, you are muted, mate.
Yeah, I think he's proving that it's actually happening.
Hence why this is live. No, I'm trying to watch it on my phone to obviously see all the comments, and I can see them here, but there's a small time delay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've just been looking at my phone, and for 30 seconds I was sitting there like that, just really miserable, not knowing it was live. So.
We dive straight in. Yeah.
Yeah, straight.
We don't do it. We unlike the Crosscut podcast, we don't have sponsors.
Nice.
So we have no working on it.
So we used to obviously all the podcast is pre-recorded, and then it's edited and put out on a Saturday. Sometimes when I forget, it goes out on a Sunday, or sometimes when I don't realise the date, it goes out on a Friday. So it will depend. And then obviously we bought the rights to the music, and that music has become a bit synonymous with the podcast, which is quite nice, because when you hear that, you think, oh, the Crosscut podcast. And then obviously now we're sponsored by Rubio and Monaco. I just had to plug them quickly. Yeah, so we originally, when the podcast would start, we would do all the Patreon thing, and then we would say, oh, thanks to our sponsors, whoever the sponsor was at the time. But Rubio were adamant that they wanted to do a voice over that we play. So for the first few episodes, I was playing it via my phone, and it sounded really daft. And then obviously now it plays after the music, so we have to pretend, and we're like, "Oh, cheers!" That was the word from our sponsors, but you have to admit it sounds a bit cringeworthy, doesn't it? Like when you just hear the voice, it's like very. Yeah, I can't say any more than what it is because I'm a sponsor, but they knew what they were getting into with me.
But it works. I think it works okay.
Oh, it does the job.
We've seen it from the other side now, haven't we? You know, officially being.
We have, yes.
The
Yes, if anyone listening hasn't yet worked it out or realised it or found it, this week's episode of Crosscut Podcast does have Jamie and myself as guests. And
can I just be really rude for a second? I've got something stuck in my tooth and it's bothering me like mad, and I really need to get it out. Like, I know we're live, but
I mean,
you sort it out. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Well, this is a first.
Well, I don't know. It's Grant nipping off for a wee, and you know, it's just.
Yes, but he did step in at the last minute. Yeah,
he did
for an ill guest. So that was kind of in good stead. So we can't hold that back from him. Yeah, that was.
Oh, it is good fun.
Thankfully, yes. Yeah. For the benefit of those watching, they may be wondering why there's a different kind of background today for me. I'm in my conservatory. So to give my family the benefit, it's half term and it's not raining. So I'm giving my family the benefit of being able to sit and watch TV rather than having to go to bed, which is what normally happens on a Sunday evening. They all disappear off to bed. And I stay in the warm. So, but it's been nice and warm today, and it's not pouring with rain. Because if it was pouring with rain, I could not be out here because it just sounds like a drum. But it's nice and dry.
Well, I was just about to say, is it leaking? Because that's the main...
Well, it's not at the moment because it's not raining. But if it was raining, it would also probably be leaking as well as being very noisy. Yes, I do need to get some. There's some fixing needed. I mean, it's an old conservatory. It's not the best. There's one of the panels has shifted about 1.5 inches. So it's
about 40 mil.
Yeah, about that. Yeah. Haven't actually measured it.
Or 1/17 of a foot. You just want to throw all the measurements in there, don't you? Just really confuse them. It's just it's Sorry,
how many light years?
Or a thumb. Did you manage to get it out?
I did. And it was beard hair. And
I hate it when that happens.
I do that with my beard, and I must have eaten a part of my beard.
I get it with my mustache hair every now and then. I just get a piece, it'll stick in and then just wedge itself in a tooth.
Yeah, and it really hurts.
It does.
Like, because you think to yourself, oh, if I had fish, maybe it's a fish bone, I can live with that. And then you pull it out and you look at it and you're just disappointed. It's like a splinter. When you get a splinter and you look at it and go, oh, that's a beefy one. That is a beefy one. And then you pull it out and your eye starts to twitch and you think, oh, that's going to be huge. And then you look at it and you're like, yeah. I mean, if I ever got hospitalized by getting hit by a car, if it was a smart car, I would tell all my friends it was like a Ferrari or something, because that's the worst car to get hit by.
It's a Mercedes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the workaround for anyone who bought a smart Roadster, is to say that you had a 2-seater Mercedes sports car, so that you didn't have to, sort of have the potential shame of saying you had gone out and bought a smart Roadster.
Yeah, and the people that drive 2-seaters Mercedes sports cars are saying that they drive Lamborghinis. It's just whether or not they do, I don't know. I don't judge people for their car choice. I have a Mercedes van, but I tell everyone it's like it's actually a Citroen. Like, they just copied the design, which is awkward.
Right.
Yeah. Oh well.
box with an engine.
Splinters are always a fun thing to think about, though, aren't they? You get this tiny little ones that kind of the end breaks off, and you get the majority of it out, and then it's like, you know that for the next week and a half, there's going to be, it's going to turn septic, or it's going to work its way out, and you're kind of going to.
Or in 3 or 4 days' time, you're going to completely forgotten all about it, and then suddenly just wonder why there's like a purple line down your thumb or something.
Yeah.
Or you just do what most woodworkers do, and you go to town on it with like your marking knife, and you're like, you will come out. You will come out. And then
I think now. What's going on?
Yeah, I think the worst one is when you've got like a bit of rough sawn material.
Yeah.
And when you rub your hand along it and you get a splinter, like you have to accept that's going to happen. And then if you like plane it all around, especially oak, and you rub your hand on it, or if your hand catches, that gash, and I say gash, it's not a cut. It's not even a paper cut. It's a full-on, you need stitches. You're going to go to hospital. You probably pass out on the floor sort of thing. You know, the amount of times I've woken up on my workshop floor going, how did I get down here? And then I just see the oak. I'm like, oh yeah, I passed out. Yeah.
Every time I work with like the like wicks or B&Q's hardwood ply, and without fail, every single time I'll make a cut and then I'll stupidly just run my hand across the cut, and then like look at the amount of various splinters just running in my hand.
You get multiple of that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or like you're holding a panel, and someone says your name or something, and the panel slips slightly in your fingers, and then you end up with like just a selection of little tiny splinters in both hands because the panel's slid about a couple of inches.
Yeah, like plywood from B&Q as well isn't good quality.
No, exactly.
Like and so it's splintery and it's gappy. So when you could hold it, I mean, could you imagine you get a splinter and then it slides down more and there's a gap, and then the splinter gets caught in the gap, and it's just like you're on the floor, passed out. Ambulance comes. That could just be me again. If this is a recurring thing.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever passed out.
No, probably a few months ago now, I was chiseling. I had to get a chisel just to clean out a rabbit, and for some reason, and I don't know why, and probably most people listening who do woodwork may know this, but whenever you have a sharp thing in your hand and you're trying to scrape, our natural instinct is to grab that piece or have our hand on the other side of the blade. So the blade is always going to hit your hand. I took my eye off it for a second and the chisel went through my finger. And to get to my house, you have to drive past the hospital. Like there's no other way to get to my house. I drove home from the workshop after I had a chisel in my hand to get my wife to take me to the hospital because I didn't want to pay the parking.
I knew that was going to be your reason.
Yeah, and then when I got there, obviously you book in, and then you go and see like the triage nurse. And I went to see the triage nurse, and she was like, "Oh, what's happened?" I said, "Well, I put a chisel through my hand." And she went, "How'd you do that?" And I went, "If I knew that, I wouldn't have done it," sort of thing. And then I had to go and wait in the the waiting area, and it took the longest time. And I was like, surely this is like important. I put a blade through my finger, clearly severed all the ligaments to my finger because I can't feel my finger. I've wrapped it up in bandages and everything, had my hand above the head so the blood didn't rush down. I was like feeling really drowsy. How I got home, I don't know. To go into the to go into the doctor for him to unbandage it, for it to be a paper cut. It was tiny. It was minute. He was like, "Oh, it doesn't even need stitches. I'm just going to put this little butterfly stitch on it, just so it seems like it was a big cut." And then when my wife picked me up from the hospital, because she was working from home, they wrapped my hand up in like a finger bandage and like a bandage for me. And my wife was like, "Oh, you're right." I was like, "Oh, yeah." He said, "I'm really lucky." Like he was like, it's probably going to leave a really cool scar. And I was like, he was just like, be thankful that you got your chisels razor sharp. And I was like, haha, I've managed to convince my wife that I wasn't an idiot. 2 weeks later, when I took the bandage off, she was like, where's the scar? And I was like, I don't know. Like, it really healed. But you can't see it. Like, it's so small. Like, it's tiny.
Well, that's because the blade was so sharp. Obviously, the clean edge came back together nicely.
Yeah, you should have seen when I put my hand through my table saw. So sharp.
It's a different kind of sharp.
Yeah, it's a different. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing that. Have you ever seen the saw stops?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen when they've done like the hot dog trick?
Mm-hmm.
There's one where the guy actually uses his hand.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
But saw stop don't like that, do they? They don't. There's a couple of people who've done it, but they'll do anything they can to stop people putting that video out because they don't want people to kind of go, oh well, I could actually do it.
Well, if it fails on you,
if you try it and fail,
yeah, and that's the thing with a saw stop. You want the system to do the job. You know, it's a case. They say the saw stop blades, when it makes contact, it can. You can just have the blade resharpened, and then you obviously buy a new mechanism. And you think for the money, you think it's like the whole seatbelt thing. The guy who invented the seatbelt, why he just gave the patent to everyone. I don't understand why saw stop. Obviously, I know it's about money, but for the sake of just give it away.
Well, there was a bit of backstory to that because he'd tried to do that. From what I understand, he'd been in touch with a lot of the big manufacturers, and they'd all basically told him to sod off. So because he'd been told to, that all these other manufacturers weren't interested, that was why he said, well, I'll make my own, using my own patent then.
Because I know Festool are the only UK one that have it in their table saws.
Because the parent company that owned Festool bought SawStop. So that's why they can license the technology across, because it's the same parent company who owns both brands and the patent.
Well, isn't that nice for them?
But I think one of the patents comes up for kind of free grab, doesn't it, in a couple of years' time?
Interesting.
But
Bosch had multiple a really, really clever one.
Yeah.
That was gas-based, and it didn't destroy the blade, and was essentially reusable and all this kind of stuff. You just replace a gas canister in it and things. And they're still stop cutting down.
But I think SawStop's patent, I believe that I've listened to it. I heard a podcast a couple of months ago just talking about it. And I believe that the wording of SawStop's patent is really quite clever, because it doesn't talk necessarily about the actual mechanism, although there's a patent for that. Mm-hmm. It talks about the principle. So the idea of actually stopping a person being cut by detecting the presence of the human and then bringing the blade down suddenly, super quick.
Well, and that's the patent lawyer as well.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the overall patent. So if you come up with another mechanism that also brings the blade down and detects human presence, they've got you.
I am still here. I just realised I left my glasses. So can't really see much.
So I think because he was a patent lawyer, I think he was very clever about how he worded the patent in order to actually kind of maximise his ability to clamp down on the patent.
Well, I mean, with a patent as well, it's only as good as your enforcement of it.
Yeah.
So with trademarks and all the rest of the stuff.
They should just do one of those universal, like epidemic music or bend sounds that you can get where you just buy the licensing fee. They should do that. In theory,
that was the whole idea behind patents, is that someone could license that patent out.
Yeah, and there's no reason why that couldn't happen. You could do that. Mm-hmm. The question is, if you had a SawStop, would you, for the sake of £70 for a new cartridge, would you try it?
I mean, you could go the complete opposite way. Instead of the blade retracting, you can have the blade shoot out. get around the patent. No,
is the new saw start?
Yeah. You started with 5, now you've got 4.
Or 6.
4 more guys. I don't know. Like, there's always that thing, isn't there, in the back of your head? It's like you know something's dangerous. Like, so this is so bizarre, and please, no one try this. Like, this is full disclaimer. But when you're like using a track saw, or you see your table saw blade, when it's spinning, you think, well, if you put your finger at the 0 clearance in the middle, surely it's not going to do anything. But the blade's spinning fast enough that it will take your hand off. And I think it's the same thing with saw stop. Just, you have to trust that it will work when it works. Like, for me, I trust my tools completely, but I trust myself more to not be an idiot with those tools.
That was what I was going to say, is we all trust our ABS on our car, and we all trust our seatbelts, and we all trust our airbags, and we all trust our traction control or anything else that's in there. But there's that level of complacency, isn't there? And that's one of the arguments against saw stops, where it can harbour complacency to think, oh, well, I can make this cut because at worst, if I mess it up, the saw stop will stop it.
Yeah, I think it's the level of danger as well, though. Like, it's the adrenaline. Like, when you're in a car, and you're driving your car, you don't crash into anyone because you don't want to pay the insurance.
Yeah,
that's literally the only reason why you don't crash. It's and I think it's the same. Like, if they hiked the price on the saw stop, instead of 70 quid, it was £1,000 to get a replacement. How many people
maybe
would just be like,
if they dropped the price of the saw, but raised the price of the cartridges, so half the price of the saw, but like, say it's going to be 400 quid for a new cartridge.
Yeah, it's just,
maybe that would make it more accessible for more people, maybe.
Yeah, and I think, well, obviously saw stops are very difficult to import. Like, I've got the Laguna Fusion 3. And that saw is phenomenal. It's a beast of a saw. It's 3 horsepower. It's brilliant. And I experienced kickback on it, I think, for the first time about 3 weeks ago. And it was a cut that I was making that I've made 100 times, thousands of times. But when I got up to the cut, I was just like, something doesn't feel right. Like, because you should always there's always that thing that, like my dad always said, like, if you're going to make a cut, do a practice cut first, like, go through the motions. And it just didn't feel right. And normally I would just stop and I was like, well, it's the last cut I need to make for today. And it was basically, it was a 45 either end of a 6 centimeter wide piece of wood by about 30 centimeters. And for some reason, I went bevel down instead of that way. And it caught because my clearance plate wasn't flush completely. And it caught, and I just, boom, my hand went back. And then after that, when I got home that night, once I got back off the floor after passing out and hitting the emergency stop, I was like, whew. I bought one of those the micro jig push sticks. Just the gripper. The gripper thing, and I've been meaning to get one for ages, but it's so crazy because it's like £74, and you think to yourself, that's a lot. Like, oh, I'll be fine, I'll just make my own push stick. And you think, well, £74 is a lot. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, is losing your hand worth more than and I'm a huge advocate for shop safety. Like, I teach classes, and I literally have the one strike and out. I tell you that your hands do not go in this area under any circumstances when you're using certain machines. And if I see the student do it, I stop the class. Like, there's no ifs or buts. It's because as much as I have the insurance for you to be there, I don't really want to pay out thousands of pounds because you decided to be an idiot.
But it's also what's on your conscience, isn't it?
Yeah, I can live with that. I can live with it on my conscience because I told them.
Yeah, that's true.
And I would feel bad, but I would only feel bad for so long because I'm like, well, you've put yourself in this situation when I've said,
yeah, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, it's like when you get in a car, when you buy a car from a dealership, they don't say to you, oh, go crash it. They always say drive safe, and I always think, well, I'm always going to drive safe. So it's the things on you. It's like when you become 18 in the UK, you're classed as an adult. You can go to war, you can drink. You've got all this burden and responsibility, but it's up to you to make the conscious right or wrong decisions, isn't it? It's it's a bizarre one. So
can you imagine if everything had to be caveated? It's like you've just been and bought this saw, so don't try and cut your fingers off, don't try and cut your arms off, don't try and cut your legs off, don't try, I'm like, they just list every possible eventuality they could ever think of.
Well, on machines it does have like can cause death or mutilation, and it's got the stop sign, and it's got a pair of fingers and a blade, and you're like, does the blade stop your fingers, or do you stop your fingers before you
need to have really strong fingers to stop the blade? Is that how you're supposed to stop it?
Can you give me an in-depth thing, please? And I like how it says, like, once you've done something silly, it says, please see our website for terms and conditions. You're like, who reads the terms and conditions?
Can't click the mouse, I've got no fingers left.
Yeah, couldn't put it in your blade. Oh, well, don't worry, though. Most tools come with a 3-year warranty, so you probably get replacement parts. Probably won't get your fingers back, though. But
yeah, right. No. I say that my uncle, he was a design draftsman by trade, and he got into kind of fine furniture. When I was a kid, I must have been kind of 10, 11. He got into making sort of fine furniture at home, and he made some really nice pieces of furniture. Grandfather clock, absolutely beautiful, and a few other pieces. He made my aunt a full-size loom because she was really into kind of spinning and textiles and stuff like that. But on one of the pieces, he put a circular saw through his thumb. I don't know how. He cut his thumb off.
This is a perfect piece. I'm just going to cut my thumb off.
But it was. I think it's a case of how he was holding it. I don't know. I mean, I was 10, 11, something like that. But they sewed it back on, and it was not quite perfect, but it was still functional. But it was on his left. Luckily, it was his left hand. So
a mate of mine's like that, and he'd lost these two in his table saw through a bad cut, but because one of them didn't re-sew on properly, so they moved the index finger across to his middle finger. Yeah. So he's basically like that, but this front half of his middle finger is actually what was his index finger.
Interesting.
I mean, I would have preferred to have been like that, but guess that's.
Yeah, it's surprising. I mean,
the question is, which finger would you, if you had to lose a finger, which finger would you want to lose?
Oh, we used to say this all the time, like arm or leg, if you had to choose. And the amount of people that say, "Oh, I'd lose an arm." Why would you lose an arm? You need these.
No, leg.
Yeah, leg every time. And if I had to lose a finger, it'd be this one.
I would go for ring finger.
Yeah.
No, I'd lose my pinky because when I do like my evil stare and my I use my right hand, my left hand. Nah, don't.
But how would you stabilize your mug? In your morning coffee.
How would you drink your tea? Yeah.
Right hand. Right hand dominant. Yeah,
that's fair.
This is good for holding things and putting chisels in.
I've worked with a few people with minus fingers. One guy worked with, he was a teacher. He'd lost, I think it was a ring finger at the knuckle because he'd been bitten by a dog, gone straight through the knuckle.
What is it? The bite force of a carrot will pierce your finger. Not pierce. A child, if a child can bite through a carrot hole, They can bite with one of your fingers off. It's the same bite
right,
force.
That makes a lot more sense because I was thinking.
Yeah, I was thinking biting carrots.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've bitten many carrots. Have you ever done that and go? You bit into a carrot and then you're just like, oh, I'm going to cry, and then you get to the point and it's a bit painful. And you're like, no, I'm going to stop.
Your brain is very, very good at stopping you. It's like you can't hold your breath.
My brain's got me into a lot of trouble.
But, did you
because of this.
Like biting the tips of your fingers though? Did you ever do that in school where you had to bite like the tips of your little fingernails? So you bite down as hard as you can for 2 minutes, and then you pull with your little fingers.
What school did you go to?
I grew up in Liverpool.
Liverpool.
That's the kind of thing that you do.
Okay, yeah, no, that's.
But yeah, when you do that, you isolate the blood flow. So when you then pull, it just like all the nerves in the fingertips absolutely scream. It's horrific. But,
no,
I mean, that's kids.
Couldn't. Oh, don't, because I'm going to pass out.
Yeah, we've got to change the subject. Yeah, we don't want guests passing out. That'd be a first.
Oh, that would.
Yeah, not one that we really want. Yeah.
Welcome to Injury Talk for those people just tuning in.
Yeah. By the way, I haven't decided. There's no disclaimer that's been signed, and you haven't told me how to operate the machinery. So if I do go, boom.
Well, tell us about tools. You have a very fine selection of tools. And you've got a fine selection of power tools, but you've got a fine selection of hand tools as well.
Very pretty.
So if you had to choose, I know that kind of any decent fine furniture maker such as yourself is going to use a combination of, and can use either.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're going to choose. But if you had to kind of go down a route of predominantly hand tools or predominantly power tools.
Hand tools.
Yeah.
Hand tools, yeah, because power tools, you're depending on power. So you're depending on the machine. You're putting all your trust in the machine. Obviously, when you set up for cuts and everything, you're doing your marking, but ultimately you're relying on that machine. So imagine if it blows a fuse halfway through a cut, or if it bites, if the wood bites on the blade, or you know. Whereas hand tools, I don't know. I think like anyone who's done my class with me or come to my workshop, they'll know that 80% of any build is hand tools in the shop. You use the surface planer, the thicknesser, and the table saw, because the course is only over a day, and if you tried to do that by hand, you're going to be there for more than a day. But yeah, I'd say hand tools, and probably specifically Japanese hand tools.
Is that because it's a more meditative experience, though?
Yeah, I think like there's something very therapeutic about shaping a piece of wood. And if you use power tools, you can do it in minutes. But if you do it with hand tools, the process is longer. You have to concentrate longer. You have to focus more. And at the end of it, you literally say, I've made this with my hands. It's quite a therapeutic thing. Like, yeah, like you guys alluded to, I have a very, very, very nice selection of hand tools. From Lee Neeson Veritas to nearly £1,000 hand plane from Bridge City. I'm not gloating there, and I'm really hoping that my wife didn't hear that. I did double check that the door was closed. Yeah, and I love them, and I think, yeah, tools it's an addiction, isn't it? Like buying a tool.
Absolutely.
Like, and I've always made the argument that you should never buy cheap, because you're going to be buying multiple times. You know,
buy cheap, buy twice.
Yeah, and it's not always square or reliable. Whereas I know I can just pick up like my woodpecker's square, and I know it's going to be perfect every single time. And I've got there's none of that doubt in there.
So what you're saying is that you don't have many like Ferex or Parkside tools in your workshop then?
Oh, do you know what? I saw a Parkside tool once, and I saw it in a book, and when I turned that page, I burnt the book. Yeah, I want for my 30th birthday, my wife's grandparents bought me a Silverline set square. And that didn't make it out of my in-laws' house. It's still there, probably in the packaging in her old bedroom.
Straight in the wheelie bin on the way out.
Yeah, I don't know, like good quality tools as well. Like when you've got a good quality tool, and obviously budget permitting is what you can afford is what you get. But I think if, say, like a good quality set square or speed square or whatever square you want to square is, say, £60, but it will take you 2 months to save up to get that, and you need one. Obviously, you'd buy a cheaper one, but I think to yourself, can you make do for that 2 months and buy the good quality
upgrade
one?
when you can,
Yeah, it's like what I do as well is I sometimes quote. Sure, you wouldn't subtly promote another podcast, Crosscut podcast.
Because I've got a Filter Tools logo behind my head as well.
No, but it's I've just lost my chain of thought. But when I quote for jobs, I also quote in a tool or a tool price.
Really good strategy, yeah.
Yeah, that's something actually which I get asked is how you quote for jobs as well, because I guess as makers, I don't know what your methods are if you ever get commissioned to do it, because Jamie, I know you do a lot of 3D printing. So I wouldn't know, like, would someone pay for the whole piece, or would you charge per hour, or is it done on a basis of how long the machine's running?
Sort of. It's done on it's a material plus, not so much time, but like a rough factored cost per unit of material, on the basis that the time isn't really going to factor too much into it.
Okay.
Once you set the machine running, it's generally a case of the cost is very slightly different depending on whether you go for a longer, slower print or a quicker one. So I can get it set up initially and it be fairly consistent. I've got it all just in a spreadsheet now. I just put some parameters in and it does it for me. So it's a relatively simple process for me to do it, for quoting those jobs, compared to doing something that's actual manual time and things like that.
Oh, I've got a really good formula for that.
Let's say for like something like design time, the only way to do that is on an hourly basis. There's no materials involved in that. It is just purely hours of brain at the computer. So
see, my thing is I literally charge, depending on I've got two methods. So I charge per hour plus material. That's it. Mm-hmm. Obviously, and VAT. On the end, or depending how small the job is, I'll charge for the job. I won't charge if someone. I don't make chopping boards because I just think, without insulting anyone, I think it's a waste of my time to make them. Just because it's not cost effective for me to do it. But if I was to make one, I wouldn't charge you an hour. I would just charge you what I think the board would cost. Because my hourly rate, it's between £85 and £120. So to charge someone £85 for a chopping board, it's a very expensive chopping board. No, you wouldn't. Hence why I don't make them, because it's not, for me, it's not cost effective. and I've got no shame telling people what I charge per hour. If you go to my Instagram and you look at any of the reels or posts, I'm very open about it because I feel that I'm worth that amount. I also don't take a deposit. I take the full amount up front as well, which is very controversial in the especially in like the.
Well, you're
the
doing custom work
ones.
Essentially, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but people still find it very difficult because I've had clients say, "How can I trust you that you'll do the job?" And I always say to them, "How can I trust that you'll pay me when the job's done?"
Yeah, once I've forked out for materials and time, and pushed the work away, and
I mean, and I'm not paying for your materials. It's not. I'm not going to put a penny towards it. So you need to pay me. Like I know a few furniture makers. It's quite bizarre because when you're in like the woodworking community, on the outside it looks very small. If you said hypothetically there's 100,000 woodworkers in the UK, in comparison to the population in the UK, it's zero. It's the smallest amount. But being in that community, you think, wow, there's a lot of people here. How am I going to compete? But then you forget that there's like 60 or 63 million odd people and stuff, and no woodworker, unless you make like charcuterie boards or chopping boards or stuff, are the same. It's very different. Everyone's got different styles, and you know, you get what you pay for, sort of thing. And it's, if you look at like carpentry, when people are doing fitted furniture, for example, you know, a few of the guys that I've spoken to, they'll say, "Oh, we take a deposit of 25%." And then you do the job and the client doesn't pay you.
Yeah,
like because
that's 75% down on the job.
Yeah, and you're covering the cost of materials, so there is no profit until you get paid the rest. There's no profit. And I mentioned it on the podcast the other night. I've had it before where the materials were cheaper than when I first started. Like when I first started doing furniture, the materials were cheaper than what I thought they would. So I said to the customer, "Oh, I can paint it for you," and they jumped at the chance. And then when I painted it, they wouldn't. This was like an fitted alcove wardrobe thing. They wouldn't pay me the remaining balance because they said that they could see paint lines on it, even though I told them I wasn't a painter, and they owed me £200 like remaining balance. And I said to them, "Don't worry about paying me." And that was the first and last time I ever made that mistake.
Yeah.
Like I learned a lesson from that is know your worth and charge your worth. And the moment, if you say to a customer, "Oh, it's £1,000 for this table," and they say, "Oh, can you do it for £750?" In that single sentence, "Can you do it for?" They've devalued what you're worth in yourself, which means they don't appreciate your craft, in my opinion.
Yeah, they don't want you for your work. They just want a person to make a thing for them.
Yeah, and you know, it's a lot of people, and I don't know how you guys find this, because I know you guys aren't woodwork, you're makers essentially, but do you ever get customers or people comparing you to like the likes of IKEA? Because I've had it before where people said, "Oh," they've come to me and they've said, "How much is this, a table this size, this side with 4 chairs?" And I'll tell them, and they go, "But I can go to IKEA and buy it for £100. Well, go to IKEA, because my design time alone is going to be more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a craft fair a couple of years ago now, because obviously pre-COVID, and I just made some, amongst other things, I made some key rings just out of some scrap bits of oak that I had. And yeah, nothing particularly fancy, but yeah, a bit of time had gone into them, shaping them, and they were all different. None of them were the same. And this one lady came in, and it's kind of the way she kind of sort of starts looking at it, and then she's almost like poking them almost, and picking them up and kind of examining them and putting one down, then picking up the next one. and then picking up the next one, then putting that down, then picking up another one, and then she goes and starts trying to barter as if she's at a car boot sale. Like, yeah, no, there's the price. Yeah, this isn't a negotiation here. Yeah, you're not. Yeah, you're not buying. Yeah, something's 500 quid, and it's only a couple of quid. Yeah, if you don't want it, don't buy it. It's like, and she was like, when I basically said no, I'm not debating the price. You know, this is not it's not a kind of a Moroccan souk. Yeah, she was like, she put it down and just kind of walked off. Yeah, it was
almost like huff. You've insulted her.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like this is like, well, I don't know how to word this without sounding narcissistic, because that's always fun. So obviously on social media you have this everyone plays a character. Yeah. Everyone does, regardless if you're being yourself, you're playing a character. And on the podcast that I co-host with Paul and Sabrina, it's very controversial because we say it how we think it is from three different perspectives. And I'm very straight up with people, and I'll tell them what I think. And if you take that to heart, it's the way that you've taken it. It's not the way that I've tried to get it across. And for me, within woodworkers, if you take products to a car boot sale, not car boot sale, that's the wrong word, like a maker's market, you can't charge anywhere near as much what you would charge if you sold that through your website. Because no one will go to a maker's market and spend £70 on a chopping board when they just wouldn't do it. Like, so you're already, the moment you go, you're going devaluing your prices, unless your price is already, say, £20. But even me, like, I look at a chopping board and go, 20 quid for this. It's insane. But you don't see like the 3 hours that someone does it. Like I went through like a quoting process with a woodworker because he wanted to know how to charge because he was getting into woodworking. So we had a Zoom call and I tried to go through it, and he quoted me for a set of placemats for my table, and I think the price was like £320. And I said to him, I was like, how did you get to that mark? And he said, well, 5 hours to make them. I said, okay, what are you charging me per hour? And he was like, £30. I was like, £30 an hour? He said, yeah, plus the wood. I said, where are you getting this wood from? It was like, well,
there's a bit of a markup then as well.
Yeah, and he went to me, obviously I have to buy a full board. I'm not using a full board. I'm not even using a quarter or a fifth of the board. I'm using 1/16 of an eighth. I'm using literally the smallest part of the board. Yeah, but I had to buy 3 boards because you want 3 different types of wood. And you can't use the rest of the 2.9 meters that you have for another project. You're going to charge me like £80 for all these boards. And like 2 hours later, we finally got it down that I was going to pay £40 for 6 placemats. And he couldn't understand at first why it was like 40 quid, because he wanted more money. And it's like, something's worth something as long as someone's going to buy it.
Yeah.
You know, if someone wants to go out and spend, like I made a solid walnut bed, and I charged the client £17,000 for that bed. Did I make £17,000 on that bed? No, I didn't. I made about £4,000 when everything was done, because it was being sent to a guy in Texas, well, Arizona. They're probably the same place.
It's all America, isn't it?
Near enough.
Yeah, it's just huge. And the wood alone was like $4,000, and then I had to pay the shipping, the VAT.
I was gonna say, shipping must have been a few thousand.
Oh, it was several thousand, because this bed wasn't designed to come apart. so it had to go in a big container. Yeah. So when you price for work, just because you see someone on the Tinterweb selling something for 15, 20 grand doesn't mean they've made. Like, I love this when you see on YouTube, oh, I made a £15,000 tabletop. No, you didn't. You didn't make it a £15,000 tabletop. You made what you made for your labor. That's all that you made. So if your labor was £4,000, you made a £4,000 tabletop. The rest is irrelevant because your clients paid for it. That's just my opinion.
I could certainly see the logic in that.
Yeah, it's. I've been doing this long enough to waffle, I think.
Perfect place for it.
Yeah, it's a difficult one as well because I don't want to come. I really try to help woodworkers. That's why I've started offering the classes. That's why we started the podcast, to talk about everything. And it's really difficult because I'm on the fence a lot of the time, because when I see someone do something good, it's like, it's amazing. And that's one thing I don't get. I don't know if this is in your community. When you see someone do something good, you're like, amazing, you made that, that's brilliant. But when you see an idiot, and I use the term idiot because when you see an idiot do something so dangerous, no one wants to tell them. And then when you do tell them, they take it personally. Like, I saw a guy on YouTube yesterday, I was sent the link yesterday, and this guy was using a surface planer backwards, and he was putting CLS through it, like on it. And there was a comment saying, you're doing it wrong. And he said, oh, I'm definitely not doing it wrong. It only goes one way. It's got a thicknesser attached to it. It has a thicknesser attached to it. He thought that they both fed the same way. He was like, the blades only go in one direction. Obviously, they only go in one direction, but when you lift the lid off and put it through the thicknesser, it goes the other way. So why are you using it the same way? And he took it, like, when this guy commented, the guy who told me about it obviously commented on it, and the guy doing it took it so personally that I actually wrote a message to my mate who told me about it and said, do you think I should post this on his thing? Or do you think I should speak to him via like Instagram? Because compared to YouTube, my following on Instagram is 100-fold. Although I haven't posted anything on 3 weeks on YouTube when I really need to. Yeah, it's so difficult though, isn't it? But yeah, and it's just like, should I tell? Shouldn't I tell? And there was that moral dilemma of, if he loses his fingers, I've actually seen how he's lost them. I preempted it. Yeah. And I don't know if you get that. Like, if you see someone do something dangerous, do you guys just like go, hey, stop being an idiot? Don't hold that soldering iron to your eye. It's going to burn, sort of thing.
There's a duty of care, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, as a human being, if you see someone's about to cause themselves harm and show others how to cause themselves harm, there is that kind of duty of care to protect your peers or protect people who might not know better and might watch the video and emulate it without the prior experience or background knowledge or things like that.
I think disclaimers need to be mentioned.
I think, I mean, there's that thing, isn't it? You get, because some YouTubers particularly will go, look, yeah, I know I'm doing this without a safety guard. I haven't got the riving knife. I haven't got, I'm using a cover guard on a table saw or whatever. And they kind of say, look, I know I'm not doing this. I know this is dangerous. I know I should be using a push stick. I mean, if I think back to when I first started using a table saw, which was in an industry, and it was a huge. I can't remember any of it now. The old English brand begins with W. The table saws. Can't think of it.
I know you've got Starlight, which was a massive.
No, it was something.
But that's an S, isn't it?
It was definitely W. Big green machines. And actually, we cut in the place I worked. We had two. Yeah. One was a huge sort of cabinet saw. I mean, we were cutting 8x4 Wadkin. Alan Fisher in the chat just said Wadkin.
Of course, it'd be Alan.
Of course, yeah. We had, one was essentially a cabinet saw, so it had a huge sliding table on it. And we were putting 8x4 sheets on, cutting that down. I mean, the thing had an 18-inch blade on it. The other one was smaller, and you had I think a 12 or 14-inch blade on. It had a much smaller carriage. Yeah, but yeah, there was a cover guard on one, but the cover guard was was a good 6 inches above the blade. Yeah, there were no push sticks at all. Yeah, obviously on the cabinet saw, it was you put the thing on, lined it up, and you just pushed, so your hands are well away from the blade. But the smaller one, we were often cutting samples, 4-inch samples. So yeah, we were often getting quite close to the blade. And yeah, it was. I mean, it was dodgy as anything. I mean, that's why it's that company that's done my backing essentially. But yeah, that was early 90s. So yeah, practices and health and safety, very different story then to what happens now. But you see people kind of still using machines like that, and they're on YouTube and they're going, look, this is my machine. I know that I should be perhaps using this, but I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm comfortable doing this, but you should be doing that. And it isn't perhaps the best of principles. And there's an issue there of kind of if you're on YouTube, you're teaching, even if you say, I'm just showing you how I did it, you're still actually teaching people. So there's the kind of whole thing. There's also that element with YouTube, of course, where there's the kind of I was going to say the safety police, but there's those people who kind of just sit behind their keyboard
and go,
police. You're going to, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing this. Oh, no, you should be doing that this way, and you should be doing that way. And you kind of, you think, do you actually know what you're talking about? Maybe not. But then you come around to see things that are dangerous. And as I mentioned on the podcast, on your podcast this week on Tuesday, the one time I have stepped in several years ago with quite a young YouTuber. It was fairly early in their career, using a chisel, and literally they were carving something. They had the piece on their lap. No. It was on their lap.
My YouTube career a few months ago. It's fine.
It was on their lap, and they were kind of working away. And essentially, if the blade had slipped, femoral artery. I basically said that. Look, I know perhaps you're good, and they are good at what they do, but that's really too dangerous to be doing.
I love it when you see the people like on YouTube and they're putting stuff through the table saw and they go, if I go quick enough and hold like a slant and I can put my fingers by the blade really, and they're like that, and you just think, oh god. Like, I have a disclaimer on all of I actually have a caption that says my videos are for entertainment purposes only and should not be copied. Like, I have that, and my
people
videos,
still will.
The thing that I like about my videos, and this is my narcissism, is they're how-tos, or their tips and tricks on how I do something, and it's always like, this is how I do it. I'm not necessarily saying you should do it, but for someone who's been doing it for as long as I have, this is how I do it, and it could be wrong. And I do get the comments, oh, that's not the right way of doing it. And then I'm just like, Mum, please stop commenting on my YouTube channels, please. I remember we did a live once, and we did a live podcast, and my mum jumped on. And then it was just like, she was like, "Don't worry, Tyler, I love you, sweetie. It's great. You're doing good. Don't worry." And I'm just like, Mum, please. Yeah, I blocked her on Instagram now. I haven't really. God, could you imagine? That'd be awkward. I haven't seen any of your posts recently. Oh yeah, about that, Mum. It's a fun Christmas.
Yeah, it's where you get followed by a completely kind of anonymous account that kind of there's just tiny little clues to make you. You got a new account, Mum?
Yeah, putting your kisses at the end of comments. Junie Pie 123. That's what we used to call you when we was younger. Junie Pie. Yeah. Oh well.
But I think there's an element of sometimes where people, and this can be people who've been maybe in the trades for a long time, will have learned something a particular way because they're when they did their apprenticeship, whoever was in charge of them or their tutor at college taught them a particular way to do something. But just because that was taught a particular way doesn't mean it's necessarily the best way.
The right way.
It's just the right way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because you get that situation of there can sometimes be multiple ways of doing something, all of which are perfectly okay, just different. But somebody might go, yeah, no, that's not the right way of doing it. Well, no, it is a right way of doing it. It's just not your right way of doing it.
See, I think that's the good thing about woodworking. And obviously, as you guys have alluded to, I'm a woodworker, so I can only speak from woodworking experience. Is the good thing about woodworking is there isn't a right or wrong way. As you've just said, there's your way. The one thing from being professionally trained to self-taught is that when you're professionally trained, you learn a lot of tips and hints and tricks, and you're shown stuff that you wouldn't know if you're self-taught, because there's nowhere to find this stuff. Like I did a video a few weeks ago on how to divide a board equally if you've got a tape measure and it's a wrong size board. Like it's not an equal number. And I did that, and the response I got on Instagram was crazy. And people saying, "Oh, I've never been shown that. I can't believe I haven't been shown that." And I was just thinking, well, you probably wouldn't have been shown that because it's not something people give away. Like, knowledge is key. Like, knowledge is power. Like, I've actually stopped giving. Like if I got a message and asked how to do something, I don't necessarily give them a straight answer anymore. It's more like you need to go and find the answer.
Yeah.
And it's not me being horrible or being rude. Is that I actually charge like one-to-one classes. Yeah, and I charge like online chats. Like, you get a chat with me for £30. We can discuss woodworking online, and I'll give you all these tips and tricks, or you can pay to do the course and you'll learn it. And that's what I think some people forget, is that you do see these Instagram woodworkers, and they do show you all this stuff, and that's great. But then there are these woodworkers that their profile is their business. And I've always said social media and the maker community now, it does go hand in hand. And I haven't had an argument good enough. Like, no one has made the point to me has been good enough to say it isn't. Like, it doesn't go hand in hand. And I think it goes hand in hand because if you didn't care if people liked what you made or wanted people to see your stuff, you would print out a picture of what you've made and physically go and take it to them and show it to them. You wouldn't put it online for millions and billions of people to see. Yeah. And it's like when people say, "Oh, I don't care about the following, but how did you get this sponsorship?" Well, because of my following, I got that sponsorship. "Oh, I don't care about the following." Well, you must care about your following if you want that sponsorship.
Yeah.
Or you must care about your following if you want to do a prize giveaway at, "Oh, I've reached 700 followers. I'm going to do a prize giveaway at 800. I thought you just said you didn't care about your following. So it goes.
I think it's probably semantics there, though, isn't it? Is, the difference between not actively trying to grow your following and caring about the people who follow you. I think you can not care about actively trying to grow your following, but you can want to reward the people who do follow you.
Which is fine, but when you do those prize giveaways, a lot of people say, "Oh, this is how you enter. Tag 2 friends that would like it, share, post, like, or absolutely. Follow me," and then you don't follow them back. And I get it. Like, you see these people, and they say, "Oh, I've got 1,000 followers. I've hit a milestone. Congratulations!" But you're following 7,000 people, so the law of average is going to dictate that some of them are going to follow you.
Yeah.
And it's the algorithms on social media will never pick you up because of that, and you can only and it's.
Or you get the people who've hit 1,000 followers. They've got 7,000 people they're following, and then a week later they've got 43 people that they're following, and they've hit that milestone, and they just unfollow every account that they're not even interested in, just to make it look like they're a superstar social media expert.
But do you know, like, even now, like 1,000 used to seem like a relatively high number, but now it's not. It's not. Okay, you have 1,000 people that like your stuff. Congratulations! Like, you don't have to do a big song and dance about it. I mean, you can if you want, and if you want to give away stuff. Like, I've been trying to do a 4K giveaway for so long. Like, and it's not what. And to be fair, it's not even one of these crappy giveaways where you're like, oh, if I get to 1,000,
this bottle of finish from
I'll give you a pencil. It's not that. Like, my giveaway is a £250 mystery box from Rubio, a brand new 18-volt Bosch track saw, a thermal gun, Bessie clamps, hats, t-shirts. Like, I think there's like a day at my shop. There's like £2,000 worth of stuff, and with the exception of the Rubio and the thermal, everything else I've bought. And I was sitting there last night, and I was like, I'm so close to 4,000. Like, I'm 300 people away. Shall I just do the giveaway now? Because I get messages saying, like, I had one and it said, you started the giveaway way too early. You should have hit 4,000. Well, no, I shouldn't have, because I wouldn't have hit 4,000. Do you know? So it's like that. And I know for a fact when I get to that number and someone gets drawn, I will lose a lot of followers. Because people are just... However, there is this thing that maybe I'll get lost because they follow 7,000 accounts. Maybe I'll get lost and never be found. And they'll never unfollow me.
Never be unsubbed to, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a game. It's bizarre. It is, yeah. I mean, social media is a game. It's a fun game, like, because some people make money off of it. Like, I must have been doing something right to get sponsorships, but I don't rub it in people's faces that I have them. Like, and I tell the sponsors, like, I'm not going to post, because some sponsors will say to you, okay, we're going to give you this and we want this. And people that have never had a sponsor before, they're like, boom, this company is going to give me a free pencil. Of course, I'm going to post about it all week. But why? There's only so many posts you can do about a pencil. Like, I've got a very good deal with Rubio. Like, it's a very good deal, but it's on my terms. I'm not gonna. I won't bend over backwards sort of for a company to say, like, if we give you your product. And this is one thing that also people understand is the top of the line product from one company may be completely different to another company. Like, if a company just makes pencils, for example, and they give you the top of the line pencil, that pencil's maximum value may be worth £40. But they're expecting you to do the exact same as a, say, power tool company, where their top of the line product's £1,000. They're expecting the exact same thing. And then you have to think to yourself, I'm not going to do 6 posts, 2 YouTube videos and 3 podcasts for a pencil when I've been offered the exact same deal for a track saw. You can buy a pencil from anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's a bizarre one, isn't it? Like, it's just a...
Well, I think companies are handling it different. I think there's different approaches from companies, because there are a few companies who are being very supportive of, say, the maker community, and are putting out kind of a lot of material with little expectation back. And I think, particularly in the States, Total Boat have been doing some great work supporting kind of members of the maker community by essentially giving away quite expensive product. And yes, they get a mention, but it's not kind of, it's product placement rather than here's total boat, whatever, blah 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 blah. Yeah, it's not the kind of complete. Yeah, you've got to. Yeah, every time you use it, you've got to have it in shot, and you've got to give this spiel that will tell you exactly what to say, and we expect 25 times for you to do that over the period of an hour's worth of recording on however many videos that is, and so there are companies that are kind of being quite supportive like that, but then you do see other companies that are kind of going, yeah, you're wanting your pound of flesh for £5 worth of materials, tools.
Yeah,
and if your production, if you're a company selling a product, you'll have got your manufacturing down to squeeze out as many of those products for as little money as possible, so that you can maximize your profits. So for you to hand out, a retail value of X amount of pounds worth of your product to a YouTuber for exposure to however many thousand people that will watch it and see it in production, that's costing them pretty much nothing.
It's I mean, you have to be very clever. So because I'm sponsored by a few, like I only do 12 commissions a year, and all my sponsors understand that, but my commissions are a decent proportion, like size. It's not they're not small things. I mean, I do make my own stuff through the year and sell it, but my actual big commissions are paid for. But what I do is, if you ever look at my daily stories or pictures, you will always see my sponsors' products in the background.
Yeah.
Always. And in my shop, I've strategically placed them to make it seem like they're just naturally there. Like if I've got wood finish, I'll just leave like a can just on a shelf somewhere.
Just in shot.
But I'll strategically have, they could be paint dripping down the can, but where it says the name, it's perfectly clean, but you wouldn't notice. Or like one of the tools, like some of the tools on my tools are from the company, one of the companies that sponsor me that doesn't want to be known. But I can tell you now, their sales have gone up, because whenever I do a video, I always make sure that tool wall's in shot, always. So I think it's also product placement is a huge thing.
It's like you get kind of all the Marvel films, all the main characters drive around in Audi cars, and Blade Runner 2049. The big screens on the side of the building. It's all got Sony underneath.
Yeah, and I think you just have to, Pete, you need to be careful as well, because nothing is free. Like nothing is free. It's not free at all, because, like as you said, they will produce what they make. They for pittance, for
Absolutely,
pennies on the pound. And yet they want you to do 6 days worth of work. And if your if they're selling this product for £100, and hypothetically speaking, your day rate was £300, I mean, they're very clever, aren't they?
Well, I think that's why
and they jump at the chance as well.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's why a lot of the advice from sort of other professional content creators is to to get cash. That if they're wanting to sponsor you, if they're wanting to support your work, and they want placement in a video that's going to take you a week to produce, then they need to cough up for it, not just a couple of £100 worth of product that is going to cost them
because
tens of pounds.
Product, to be honest,
it's nice,
product is
nothing. Pay the bills.
Yeah. Product is nothing. It's I always think to myself, so I got that track saw from someone who was a Bosch tester when Bosch did the testing, but they never tested the product. So that track saw, I think, is like £500-600, and I paid £100 for it. And I think to myself, I could actually sell that for £400 because I could actually do with the money. you know. But I don't, because I know that I have a track store already, and I know that could go to someone who could make better use of it. And if all it takes is for me to get to a certain amount of followers, I think that's a fair deal, considering that someone could potentially win thousands of pounds worth of stuff. Yeah, you know, and I also think that what you see on, like, because I know if you've got X amount of YouTube followers, you get paid X amount and all this, but what you see on social media is only what people want you to see. Like,
yeah, of course, it's curated content, isn't it?
Yeah, like, I've made no shame of it that my business is struggling. Like, it is financially, it is struggling, and I don't get paid by my sponsors. I don't get monetization. I get product, which is great, but I don't need 100 tins of wood finish.
What you can't I eat do wood finish.
With, no, you know, and I've got this overwhelming desire to want to, like, live. It's like when you go for a job interview. Why do you want this job? I don't know. I've just got this overwhelming desire to want to pay my bills.
Yeah, like, I like food and I want to keep paying my mortgage.
Yeah. And it's just, yeah, it's a weird one. And like, I don't begrudge them. Like, I absolutely love my sponsors because, you know, like on Wednesday, I get to go and give a talk on furniture at Twickenham. Who else can say that they get to go to Twickenham and give a talk to other woodworkers? Like, not many people. And, you know, I do get put up in hotels and stuff, but I don't, as I said, I don't get monetization from this. One of the other companies I do ambassadorship for is that every 3 months, if someone uses my discount code, I get 5% of the sales from that code. But I mean, I got told what it was that I made, and it wasn't even worth a postage stamp. Because some people would use my code to buy one sandpaper disc. And you just think, cheers, I've got 2p from that. And I'm not being greedy. I'm not, you know, like 2p is 2p.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, they've all, that company, Woodwork Supply, got plugged, I'm sorry. They've just started selling my merchandise now, which is great because I don't have the time to sell it myself. But I know if I sold it myself, I would make 100% of the profit. And that's another thing. You know, everyone thinks, oh, I'll start selling merch because I've made a table or I've made a chopping board. People are going to want to do this. I've reached 100 followers, so people are going to want to buy. No, they won't. They don't want to buy your merch. Like, there's this whole thing of community spirit. And I think the community's there, but I think it's lacking.
Yeah.
I just think it's just lacking because obviously everyone's in the same or similar situation.
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference in it's like some of the communities, it's sort of people trying to make a living from it. So it's like mutual sort of like follow for follow and that kind of thing. It's a little bit hollow under the banner of community. But then there are other sort of bits where it is hugely community focused and hugely, you know, beneficial as a community, but it's a much smaller thing than people might realize.
Yeah. See, you're never going to make money if you try to sell to your own community.
Agreed.
Because if you're selling, well,
here's a good example.
I don't know.
Me in the
I like buy coffee cups. Yeah, that's true. Like, but if you've got someone that's made charcuterie boards, for example, and they're like, oh, now on my Etsy store, everyone that follows you on social media also has an Etsy store, and they're also selling charcuterie boards. And a lot of people with that mindset are like, especially woodworkers, and I know this is right because I am a woodworker myself, and I've been there. It's they won't get someone else to make them something because they think they can make it themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would I pay?
Might take 6 months, but
yeah, why? Oh, and
why would I pay 360 quid for a load of mats when I could make them for 40 quid myself?
Like, they'll go to their partners. Oh, I can make that table. He's charging us 4,000. I could make it for 600. What are you making out of? Pine? Like, oh no, I'm just going to use pallet wood. It's not even wood, is it?
IKEA doors.
Yeah,
IKEA cardboard tables.
Yeah, and that's why people don't get sales on Instagram, because they're trying to sell them. They're trying to sell their product to themselves. It's like when you know, I don't follow a lot of people, but the people I do follow are interior designers or hotels or restaurants or estate agents, people that I want to buy from me. I think I follow like 100 woodworkers because they were there with me from the absolute beginning. But they're not my clientele, so I never try to force anything on them, ever.
What? See, I think that is the key word in there is if your business is selling a product, you have to pick the right audience to put that product in front of, to kind of force that sale. But you can't.
I do follow you, Baz, yeah.
But you can't do that to people who also make the same thing. You can't force a sale to people who can also make the thing.
Yeah, and Jamie, here's a hard truth: people make CAC. People, they do, and I'm not being horrible. People make CAC, and they think that they can sell it because someone who's got 16 years experience is selling it the same. Yeah, the only difference is the person with the 16 years experience probably has the clientele that's willing to pay for it, because they're buying, like when you buy furniture, you're not buying a piece of furniture, you're buying the person.
Yeah, exactly. It's the brand, isn't it?
Yeah,
but what I'm hearing here is you've essentially distilled the entire maker community down to being Britain's Got Talent and those, talent shows where you've got a young person with no real skill or experience being told that they are fantastic at what they do, so therefore go in for a big national competition where you win a big massive prize. It's false bravado almost.
Yeah, I think when someone tries something, you should never discredit them for it. Never knock them down. Like no one has a right to say to someone else, your work is horrible or it's terrible, or to belittle someone. No one has a right to do that. But there is a point where you think to yourself, right, you're making a charcuterie board out of you. And you're trying to sell this toxic wood to someone. Oh no, it's fine. I've seen other people on Etsy do it. It's fine. And look, it's got a really nice handle. I don't care if it's got a nice handle. It's a toxic wood. Like common sense dictates don't do that. But for people getting into it, they don't know. Or they'll be like, oh, I've made my first table, and it's a couple of scaffolding boards screwed with a piece of wood at the bottom. Congratulations, you made a table that will probably last one winter until it warps. There's a huge difference between
like my tables. Realistic about expectations and things as well, isn't it?
Like my dining tables start at £4,000. That's what they start at. But that dining table will probably outlast your house. And if you want a dining table from me, I'm not gonna say to you, like, you come to me on a Friday and they're like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'll go into my workshop on Saturday and I'll make it for you. It'll be ready by Sunday afternoon. Because that's what a lot of hobbyist woodworkers do. They feel that they need to go into their workshop and make something to feel like they've achieved something that weekend. You don't have to. You could go in there and plane all the wood and let it rest for the week, like you should do. Like my dining tables take about minimum 3 months to 6 months to be made. And that's because once I've milled the wood, I let the wood sit for as long as I can to acclimatize. But again, that's experience. Like, I know to do that, and I just don't ever feel like going back to the hand tools thing. Sorry, I think it's the exact same ethos when I make furniture. I don't feel like I need to be rushed. If you're paying me X amount of money, like, I'm not being funny. If I commission someone to make me a table and they said, "Oh, yeah, here's the quote. It's £6,000 and it'll be ready in 2 weeks," I'd be like, "Whoa, why is..." Like, if I didn't know woodworking, I'd be like, "Oh, that's amazing. I get my table in 2 weeks. It's great." But if I knew woodworking and they said to me it'll be ready in 2 weeks, I'd be like, "Is this already made?"
Yeah, it's not a bespoke piece then, is it?
Have you bought this table? Yeah. Whereas if they said to me, "Oh, you're probably looking at 5 months," I'll be like, "Okay, well, that seems a bit long, but 5 months for a bespoke table." Like in America, people would happily wait because the market for bespoke stuff is huge. In the UK, we're of a mentality that we want it now, like we want it
and cheap,
quick. Yeah, we want it cheap and now, and it's just like, and we want the best material. I had this lady, she wanted a table, and it was like a live edge walnut desk that folded down onto the wall. And she sent me a list on my website of everything that she wanted. So I sent her a quote, and my quotes are password protected when they're sent because I charge for my quotes. If you're real about, if you like my work and you want to go ahead, you will pay the quote to get the password and you can see it. So she paid it, and then I get a phone call, and she said, "Yeah, I looked at the quote, but half the stuff that I want is missing." And I said, "Well, yeah, because your budget that you told me only pays for this amount."
Yeah.
And she was like, "You're just hiking the prices up." I said, "No, I'm not. You want this, this, and this. This is what you get for your budget. If you want it to fold up and then you want hinges to roll out with a separate table that folds back down into a 6 or 10 meter long dining table, £1,000 doesn't cut it. The wood alone is going to be more than that." So yeah, people have unrealistic expectations, and unless you can persuade 7 billion people, consumers on the planet, to change their mindset, as a furniture maker, it's always a losing battle. Like, I don't think anyone gets into any professional. If you want to get into woodworking and make money from it, I think you're kidding yourself. Like, you are, because especially in the first 2 years, you're not going to make any money. You may think you've made money.
That's business practice, isn't it? It's very difficult to break even in the first 2 years of any business.
Like you think that you're making money. Like, I thought that I was making money, but I mean, you're not, because in order to make money, obviously you have to spend money. In any business. But I think some
turnover
people go
isn't
into
profit.
And I think some people go into business with a bit naive. Like in my first year, I was very naive to it. Like when I got my tax bill for last year, my accountant said, "This is what you've made, but this is your final tax bill." And in the end, I got like 25 quid back. And I was like, hold on a second. I made 25 quid. That's amazing.
How long's the business been running now then?
2 years. But I started it end of 2019, before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So I got hit hard. Like I was doing domestic carpentry, and then I moved into. I've been trained to make furniture. I'm professionally trained in furniture making, and I used to sit. I had my little job site table saw under my gazebo in my back garden. That was my workshop for like 6 months, and then I got a commission to make 2 tables. And I was like, "Oh, I need a workshop." So I found a workshop, which I thought was cheap for the area. And then I find out that like people have got 1,200 square foot workshops and they're paying 100 quid. a month, and there's me paying nearly £600 for 275 square feet. It's like, what? It's a garage, which is insane. And then obviously, because when I found this workshop, I was like, oh, it's £224 or something. I was like, oh, that's affordable. And then it was like, oh yeah, then you've got your service charge, then you've got your VAT, so it's like more like 600 quid.
And like, your rates.
Well, then your rates.
Yeah, you're advertising this wrong to me, like, sort of thing. But I needed a shop, and I remember the first thing I had in the shop, the first thing I bought was the big table saw. I was like, I need a big table saw. And then I bought a thicknesser. And then like £35,000 later, my workshop's kitted out. And I sit there sometimes and I think, oh, you know, the business isn't making money. And like, I won't, like, my mental health with business isn't great because I do have because I have to take money out of our savings. But that's why we have savings, and like, we've given the business until December. If the business doesn't turn a profit, then unfortunately I will have to close it, because it's just to take £1,600 a month from my savings just isn't viable. And like, I'll sit there and like, you know, people say to me, you know, I did a reel about it, and I got all these comments saying, oh, have you thought about minimalizing, or what's your outgoings and stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I've been through this with all my accountant. What I pay for my outgoings is what keeps my business afloat. Like, I'm sorry, but the advice that you've given, you work in your shed at the bottom of your garden. I have to pay X amount to have my rubbish collect. I have to pay business rates. I have to pay to the local council. I have to pay VAT because my turnover last year was over £84,000. Did I get £84,000? No, I didn't. You know? But that's what I was paid in invoices, so I must have made that amount of money. Well, no, because material alone that I spent last year was about 40 grand.
Yeah.
Because the
especially during the pandemic.
And wood prices went up.
Prices have all gone up, and
it's super annoying because my clients don't buy the materials; they transfer me the money to buy it. So as soon as it passes through your account, boom, your accountant's on you. It's like, what is this? You know. And it's just like, it's a tough one. Like, and I do have days where I just sit there and I just bawl my eyes out. And my wife is like, don't worry, like, we're a team, we've got this. And like, with a baby on the way, it's like, but how long can I sustain this? And then sometimes I'll be in the workshop and I'll look around and go, do you know what? This workshop's worth 35 grand. Like, I could sell that table saw for 3 grand, and then that's 2 months. I can afford to keep the shop, but then how am I going to cut the wood? Or I get the messages like, why do you buy expensive tools? A lot of the hand tools that I've got, I was given by a sponsor, and that has come at a cost. Like, I still pay for the tools. I just get a discount on them.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's I don't know. I think running a business is really disheartening sometimes because a lot of people, you know, they see you as the face, and they just think you're just a woodworker or an Instagrammer or whatever. They don't know that you are the face of your business because you are the only one that works for your business. And then they say to you, oh, but being self-employed is all right. Well, I'm not self-employed. I'm a PAYE under my business that has to now pay taxes. I have to pay for a registered office because I don't want my home address on company's house for people to see, which costs money. And then like, I've got a van, I have to pay for advertising. And like, that's why I use social media, because I don't have the budget for advertising.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then you're trying to help people on a continuous basis. Like, you're trying to be like, oh, you're doing an amazing job, being supportive. You get asked to do giveaways, so you think, oh, well, maybe it's exposure, so I can give them a t-shirt. But each one of my t-shirts are like 25 quid. And then that's 25 quid lost straight away. People don't know this. And then like, you say to someone, oh, I've got an old tool. Do you want it? And then they don't get off your back because you haven't posted it, because you've been trying to keep your business afloat and you've got other things to worry about than posting a tool. I'm sorry, that tool's free. You'll get that tool when I post it to you. If you want to help pay towards the postage, that would be greatly appreciated. Why do I have to cover the postage? Oh, you said you'd give it for free. Well, I think and I think that's why the community lacks.
There's an element
because they don't understand.
Yeah, do you think there's an element? It's almost like the sort of social media hobby business lines are kind of blurred. I think about kind of wood turning. Because I know quite a few wood turners, and you go to like craft fairs. There's always somebody sort of selling, wood turned bowls, candlesticks, whatever. And I've been to I haven't been to kind of a lot, and known people that do sort of sell that sort of stuff. You go to some sort of craft fairs, and there'll be some kind of retired guy who maybe he's a member of a wood turning club, and he's selling, because it's nearly always a he. Not that all wood turners are men, because there's some bloody brilliant female wood turners. But it'll be a retired guy who's got a little shed down the bottom of his garden with a lathe and maybe other things, but that's his thing. And he'll be selling pieces that are really, really good, that have obviously taken time to produce, to finish, to maybe stain. But he's selling them pretty much for the cost of the bowl blank. And he's selling them for pittance, really, because he's not selling anything based on the time it's been taken to produce it or the skills. He may have years of experience of turning. Yeah, it could be a professional turner, but is selling based purely on, it's my hobby. If I can just keep the bits coming in, I use my pension to buy a new chisel every now and again, but I've pretty much got everything. I replace the lathe every 5 years maybe, but that's kind of, I just do that because it's I'll wait for an offer because I'm retired, and they're literally just paying for, not paying, they're asking for on their sort of the craft fair. It's a day out, and I can meet a few people, and I can chat to some of the other fellow kind of sort of sellers, and I'm going to sell a bowl that should be being charged. A proper professional turner would sell for £125, but I'm going to sell it for 15 because I only paid 10 quid for the blank, and there's a bit of stain on it, and that's it. And so it becomes, in the eyes of the kind of the sellers, we've got this kind of blur. And I think also there's an element of, it was like talking about charcuterie boards. I mean, I know quite a lot of American makers who, amongst other things, make chopping boards and charcuterie boards, and they will sell, like you say, in the States, they'll sell a board for $200, $250, and
they won't bat an eyelid.
No one bats an eyelid about it. Yeah. And in the UK, it was like the same sort of board. You go, I'll give you 20 quid for it because it's got a bit of fancy inlay.
And do you know what? And you think to yourself, hold on a second, why are you putting a bow tie with huge gaps and then trying to fill it with sawdust in a board that's going to have food on it? Not hygienic, but hey. And I think also as well, people base it off your following as well. They think because you've got a higher following, you must be better, and that's
get a
not
signature
the case.
piece off a famous person.
Yeah, it's like I've been asked to make stuff for exposure, and I'm like, no, and they're like, don't you want? But I've got, you could get work out of this. I could get work out of this, or I will get work out of this.
Well, the thing is,
difference.
It's the I could get work out of this. It's like, or while I'm taking the time to make this thing for free for you, I could actually be doing actual work. If you're going to ask me to take a week out of my year's worth of work to make something for exposure, to maybe get some more work, or I could just do some actual work for someone who wishes to pay me for my work.
And what is exposure? Like
it's an opportunity for someone to get something without paying for it.
Yeah, and I'm not being funny, but all the people that follow your page, not your page, this is me hypothetically speaking, are into dresses. Like, I'm not trying to sound sexist, are into dresses or puppies or suits or stuff. They're not into woodworking. Like, they don't need this. They don't want to buy one of my pieces. So all the people that follow you are people that are like you, but wouldn't necessarily have the same budget as you. I just walked right into like a hole with a shovel and just keep digging. Oh, that just did not go to plan.
Well, I mean, that sweeping generalization aside, it is a case of a lack of awareness, and it's like you say, people don't necessarily have an appreciation for the amount of time or effort or tools or materials. Someone who's not in that industry, someone who's outside of the woodworking community or the making community isn't going to necessarily know how much oak is in board feet and how many board feet are required for a dining table and how much space you need to glue up a 8-foot long table, or how many jigs you need to have on hand.
I can tell you, it's not 8 foot that you need, it's more.
Exactly. And it's sort of thing of not understanding that by them buying a bespoke piece from a craftsman or, a person who's trained and tooled up to be able to produce that table, they are part of the purchase agreement for you having and running a workshop full of tools and materials and glues and finishes and sanding and everything involved.
They don't get consumables. Like, I just made a canopy, a 2 meter by 1 meter high canopy out of Iroko, and if anyone's ever worked with Iroko, it's very toxic. It can give you rashes, but it's also, and this could be worse, people, so just hold on to your horses here. It's worse for your tools. Forget your health. So I was when it got delivered on Friday, I was talking to the guy that bought it off me, and he's a returning customer, and we're very open with each other. Like, if I say a price and he's like, I'm not paying for it, I'm like, well, I'm not making it. And then 2 days later, he'll come back and go, oh, can you make it? I'm like, yeah, but it's still the same price. I was talking to him, he was like, why was the quote so high? I said, because I knew for a fact I would have to buy new saw blades for the table saw. I was like, I thought you said you get them sharpened. And I was like, I do get them sharpened, but the first few cuts are going to dull my blades. And then I'm going to have to send them off to get sharpened. Then I won't have blades for a week. I mean, I did. I have like 6 blades. Like, I've got tons because I changed my blades. Like, I've got rip blades, cross cut, general. And I charged him for 2 blades. Like, because I knew it would go. I charged him full whack, even though I got them from FFX at half the price. And that's something people don't see. Is consumables.
Yeah, and most businesses will, it doesn't matter to the customer. If you're able to, well, if you're buying all your materials from Wix, I mean, fair play to you for doing that to begin with, but
especially all the hardwoods.
Exactly.
Where I get all my hardwoods from. They're veneered.
The banana wood. Yeah,
exactly. If you're buying all your materials from somewhere like Wix as a business and you're not using the Trade Pro or the discount, whatever the discount is, as far as the customer is concerned, when they go into Wix, that's the price that they see. And as a business, you can get 10% off by being a business and having that discount card. You don't charge them the 10% off fee for the materials. You charge them
10% extra.
A markup on what you paid on it.
Yeah.
Because that's the way that you make money on having to drive your insured, taxed, fueled up van to the place to pick up the materials. you've got costs involved in this. You have to charge for that to the customer.
One thing about products as well, like consumables, there's this whole ethos that people have now, and it's buy locally, buy from small businesses. If a company's selling sounding discs, like buy from them, help a small business out. I can tell you now, I can go on Amazon and get those exact same sounding pads for a fraction of what you're charging me. And as a business, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, I want to see other businesses thrive, but in my eyes, I have to put my business first.
I mean, that's exactly why someone will get a quote from you and go to IKEA and buy it from IKEA, because it's exactly the same parallel there.
I just got a big 1 litre thing of Type Bond, the gallon, and normally it's Type Bond 3, normally it's £53. I got it on the Amazon deal for £11 today.
Bloody heck.
Yeah, so I bought 5 of them. So I'm good for like the next year for glue, as long as I don't use. And maybe I actually bought the 8 ounces one. This is going to be awkward if I did. No, it was the 1 gallon
sample pots
ones. Yeah, because they were having a flash sale. So instead of going to like Wood Shop Heaven or Woodworkers Workshop or God forbid Rutland's, if you go there, they buy their followers. Sorry, I had to say that. Like Amazon is like, is you just go to Amazon. Like I got these for mixing. These were on hand. I actually had these on the table because I wanted to do this all night. Just for them.
Is that what pint? Plastic pint?
For mixing finish. I got that for £3, 50 for £3 off Amazon. Like I'm not so for me. It's I think Ian just said it. Like no matter how much you want to help a small business out. And the idea of helping a small business, and maybe I'm a hypocrite for it because obviously I'm a small business, but at the end of the day, if I can get a product the exact same for what I need, why wouldn't I? Like
but you're also a small business that's still in the early stages of your business and are struggling.
Yeah, and I've even said to my wife, like I wouldn't buy my furniture. Like it costs too much money. No, it's like This is a prime example. Our dining table is from IKEA. And for the longest time, I'll punch Baz bloody resin. I hate it. He knows how much I hate resin and he just does. No, and my dining table cost us £100. And even though I said I was going to make a dining table, when I actually worked out the quote, I was already at £3,500 of my own money. So why would I spend £3,500 when I can go and buy this table from IKEA and it does the exact same job?
Well, that's the thing is it's
you're not
it's
your
finding
client.
the right it's
I'm
finding
not
the
my
right
client.
market, and your market isn't you. It's your target demographic is someone with enough money to pay for that level
and
of dining.
I think there's a misconception of what people think their target audience is. You see it all the time. People like, in order to sell your pieces, regardless if it's furniture or 3D printing or whatever, or earrings, wrapped in tin foil with fish hooks, it could be anything. Is everyone thinks there's a specific target audience for that. There isn't. Your target audience is who will ever buy it.
Absolutely.
Like
and therein lies the innate value as well.
Yeah.
It's like you said before that people, something's worth is only what people are willing to buy it for. And someone might look at some of your tables and say, well, that's worth £2,000. And someone might look at your tables and go, that's worth £20,000. You can't dictate that to them. You can ask a price for it, but they're not under any obligation to spend that amount of money on it.
Like I in my lounge, my lounge is full of the furniture that I've made. My first ever piece of furniture that I made is in my lounge, and it's next to one of the most recent pieces. And you can look at where I've started to where I've come from. and my wife won't let me get rid of the original piece. And all it is 3 scaffolding boards to glue together with hairpin legs, stained in, I think it's what's that brand that does exactly what it says on the tin?
Ronseal.
Ronseal. I think it's got Ronseal stained on it. And
it's part of your story. It's part of the journey to
I think the legs cost like 30 quid off Amazon, and the scaffold board was like 20 quid cut in 3. And I could literally knock those up and sell them for 100 quid and make a profit, but I don't, because that's not what I do. Whereas I've got one of my best selling pieces, my Georgina, next to it, which is the sofa end table, and I sell that for just under £600 because it's not a big table. But the first Georgina I ever made was made of offcuts. That probably cost me 40 quid. And it's
that's not factoring in your labor. That's factoring in.
Yeah, that's just material. And it's but I could knock a Georgina out. I could have all the parts cut, milled, within 3 hours because I know it off by heart.
That's still 300 quid roughly on your labor plus the parts.
Yeah,
so you're looking 340 there.
Yeah, plus that, plus the delivery, plus the finish. So my prices do make sense to what I charge. And I look at the table and I think, because it's got book match tabletop, and I think that's an amazing piece. But when I look at the table, I don't see £600. I see 40 quid, and I think to myself, if I only charge materials and then maybe 10 quid, so say 50 quid, and I could bulk knock those out, I could actually make quite a lot. But then the idea of the Georgina loses what it means. Like that's like
that's the idea of value.
Yeah,
that's the key
value
thing.
Versus cost.
Doesn't matter what it costs to make.
It's
what
the value
it's worth to someone else. It's that value. It's the value added.
I mean, it is probably the nicest table I've ever made. Like if and it's all hand cut joinery as well, mortise and tenon joints. And the thing is, you'll never ever see them. You'll never see the joints unless you look under the table. And it's crazy. It's because like on the class that I run, I say you get to make your own Georgina, but it's not making the Georgina. It's the idea behind it. It's you make your own version of whatever you want. It's I think that's what sets a good maker and a great maker apart. It's not the attention to detail. It's what you've put into that piece. It's not just, you could make a great piece of furniture out of CLS or MDF. You could do. Of course. You look at some of these artists, like the painters, and they're painting themselves for like 100 million. You think to yourself, it literally looks like a toddler had a hissy fit.
I mean, that's it's perspective, isn't it? Painting is essentially just some pigments and some base color on a bit of canvas. In the same way that any bit of furniture is a bit of wood, bit of time, bit of effort, bit of elbow grease. It's the perceived value is in how it's sold.
Art is a bit of a funny one, though, isn't it? Look at that example from last year with the banana duct taped to a wall that was sold for stupid amount of money.
That's just, I mean, I've got a whole bunch of bananas here, and I've got some tape, and the tape is as fragile.
Well, that's the thing is that's where your furniture pieces are your art. In that sense, it's someone isn't going to look at, or rather, no, not everybody is going to look at your tables and think it's worth what you're asking for them. In the same way that we wouldn't look at a banana duct tape to a piece of canvas and say that's worth more than the price of a banana and a roll of tape. It
depends where you get your tape from.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, if you're buying it from Butler's.
I mean,
It's going to go for a bit.
Frog tape is a fair amount. No, but it's so I recently made a table called the Lucinda, and it's a 3-legged table, and it does what a table needs to do. But I made that for Rubio, and it's art. It's not a functioning coffee table. I wouldn't recommend using it as a coffee table because it has 3 legs. It was done to showcase how you can push wood to its limits, like how you can push boundaries of making things. Like that's another thing as well. There's this whole thing of like form, function, and look, aesthetics. Furniture doesn't have to do what it needs, like what it's meant to do. Like you can make a chair that's never going to be sat on. You know, it's the idea of, that's all that woodworking is. It's art in wood form.
But then you look at the philosophical side of it, and what is a chair? It's a thing that just holds your backside off the floor. So a coffee table is just as much a chair as a chair is. If you can sit on it and you don't fall onto the floor, then
I mean, if you look at
a lump of rock is.
Yeah, if you look at like the Japanese philosophy, like their religion, Shinto, is it? Yeah, and like you look at their religion, it's nature, spirituality is one. So when you look at their furniture, it looks delicate and it looks like it shouldn't be functional.
Yeah, it looks like it's not a made piece.
Yeah, and because they say in Japanese furniture they don't use sandpaper because they get it to a perfect finish with planes and chisels.
And let the material dictate the shape and the finish.
And you look at it and you think it doesn't look practical. It doesn't look finished. It doesn't look like it should work. And then you jump on it and you think, no, this table's pretty solid. It's not going anywhere. So, yeah, it's a good table. I made a table where you can actually lift up the frame with one finger.
Nice.
It was made out of soft maple, and it's about 15 mil in diameter each leg, and the cross brace. And the tabletop, the actual top that fits on it, it's like a desk, weighs 26 kg. And it's just, when it's on, the frame doesn't move. But it's the joints and it's the wood. It was the wood selection as well. I configured it in the way that the grain was going, and I made sure that there was no disfiguration in the grain. Like all the grain was quite tight. It wasn't. Yeah, and I mean, and that table is going to last an absolute lifetime.
Wood, I mean, from a scientific point of view, wood is, and a material science point of view, wood is an amazing material if it's used correctly.
Yeah.
Grown correctly.
Like many things. Yeah.
Just use oak. The tensile strength with oak is incredible. Good for everything. Although it's sharp corners.
Yeah, I want to kind of sort of change tack slightly. I've heard you talk about this before on Crosscut podcast, but yeah, like talk about here. You've kind of hinted at it in a couple of things. You name your furniture. Tell us about that. So why and how? How did you choose the names? Yeah, and why?
Most people, like when people number. Like my furniture always gets a number as well. So it just means that I can trace the number back. So I name them after women that inspire me. Because I don't think women get the credit that they deserve for what they do. Because as I said on the podcast, without women, none of us would be here. And I think since my wife being pregnant, I think my outlook of what she's had to go through has massively changed. And I think the furniture, it stems from my mum. the first piece I ever made, I think I was 10. And I called it June after my mum, because I was like, my mum. And it just kind of slipped my mind until I started making furniture again. And I only name the pieces after women that inspire me if they will never be made again. Because that piece is the embodiment of what I think of that woman. So I'll give you an example. I have a Henriette table that I made, and the top floats onto, and then it goes onto a 12-degree curve where the wood curves round, and then it goes onto a solid fixing. And that was named Henriette because one of my wife's best friends, she used to be an aid worker for UNICEF. And it was a solid base because she had her fixings. She knew what she was doing. It had a curved top because her journey was winding, because she worked for United Nations, so she was going everywhere. And then it had a floating top, and the floating top, it had 3 dowels, and the 3 dowels were representations of what she's done in her career. And the floating top, if you look at it, it's a mirror image of the bottom. It was her bearing, it was her fixings again. So it's like, this is where you started, this is where you're going, and this is where you're going to end up. And that's why that was there. Yeah, the Georgina was named after my little sister. She's a single mum with 2 kids, and that table is solid and beautiful, and it has a story. So the book match, even though it was an offcut, it's a book match. It's like a book, it's a story. So that's how she got the name. The Elizabeth, the first table I ever made for my wife, was for my wife. It's like my logo. People just see a bear on a tree, or now they see a bear cub and a bear on a tree. It's not that. It's the family. It's me, our little boy that's going to be due, and my wife is the oak tree, and she's the foundations of the family. She's solid, and the bears are at the tree looking for guidance and reassurance, and that's where that comes from. So yeah, my pieces are named after women that inspire me.
I like that.
The Lucinda was actually named after the wood turner, Lucinda. She does very she's on Instagram. She does very quirky, like, bowls and intricate stuff, and it's amazing stuff that she does. So when I made this table, she joked and said, "Oh, can the next table be made after me?" And it just so happens that I was making this one. And I was like, "Well, this table's quite quirky, actually." Like, and the legs are actually turned legs. And I was like, I'll call it Lucinda. There you go. And then I did. And that's how the Lucinda has now ended up at the head office of Rubio on display for the world to see.
Nice.
Yeah, it's but yeah, I never make the same piece twice. Just because I just think that I'm not a mass producing business.
Well, you're making one-off art pieces, so that's understandable.
I've thought about, like, and I've had deep conversations about trying to mass produce. And I think if you mass produce, I think you lose a part of yourself. Like, if you're a company and you're mass producing chopping boards, chairs, I don't care what it is. If you're mass producing, you're in it for the money. Like IKEA, everything is just melamine and chipboard, and even then it's not. Sometimes it's just cardboard, and it's because they are, it's purely for the money. It's a mass producing. For me, yes, I want my business to make money, and yes, I want to make money so I can provide for my family. I'm very fortunate that my wife has a very good job where I can continue to do this, And I do want to provide for it, but I know for a fact I'm never gonna get millions of pounds. Like it's never gonna happen. And it's because I don't compromise on who I am. Like if someone says to me, I want this table, I really want you to do it, but I can only afford this much. Well, I'm sorry, but it costs this much. Just because you can't afford it doesn't mean I have to then take the bet. Like I've got to take the hit, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna compromise. Or if someone says to me, "Oh, I want this done, but I need it done in 3 weeks' time," if I know from the design it's going to take at least 2 months, I won't take the job because I know I can't deliver their expectations. Case in point, the 3 desks that I've just made. I made 3 identical desks out of solid oak in 45 days. And I said, because the guy said he wanted them by this day, and I said, okay. And I took them on because I needed the money. But I didn't name the desks. I called them the Houghton sisters after my nieces, but I didn't brand them or I didn't number them because they're not pieces that I was entirely happy with. They're perfect desks. The legs are at perfect 45s. Like the drawers are perfect. There's nothing wrong with them. I have to go Monday morning just to do a little touch up on the tiny one because the stain didn't take, because I think there was some glue, but that's fine. But I wasn't happy with them. Like I was looking for excuses to give the guy his money back because I wasn't happy with the desks.
Is that just because they're not your design, they're not your showpiece, they're just
no. So they are. No, so they're a hybrid of 3 desks that he wanted that I combined. And I think it's because I felt rushed the entire process. Because normally if I was like, when I made those desks, I lost a lot of my shop room, like a lot, which means I didn't have my shop is laid out where it flows really well.
So there's a lot of negative association with these things, a lot of bad feelings and bad memories kind of tied up in these.
Yeah, like I'm happy with the desks, but I'm not. Like if someone said to me like, oh, if someone said to me, oh, I saw your desks, I would like one, I wouldn't say okay, it will take 45 days. I would make them wait the process, and I think I'd do like a lot different as well, and I think there might be a bit of resentment because I filmed the whole process for a video, and it's the first video where I've done a full build, like 45 days of footage that I'm trying to edit. And I think I've got the resentment because it's like I'm editing the video and I'm just like, this is just...
Videoing a build does change the nature of the build. The number of projects I haven't done because I thought I want to do that as a video. And I haven't done it, even though I know that actually if I just did it and didn't bother to record it, I would enjoy it. And I would have something that I'd be happy with. But because I've kind of maybe decided, I want to make that as a video, it's actually put me off doing it. And I haven't done it.
Yeah, I think it's difficult as well. And I think because my business is struggling, and I make no shame of it, I think because it is struggling, because I took the job because I needed the money, I obviously gave like a discounted rate for the job to win the bid. So I feel that I undervalued myself making them, and I went against everything I believe in. And it's not necessarily a pride thing. I think one of the hardest things is accepting that my wife is paying the mortgage and everything at the moment. So there's a lot on her. So, and I've come to accept that. And I think it's like a not caveman instinct where the man should provide, but because I can't do that at the moment, because of business is tough. You know, in my personal life, I'm the happiest person in the world. Like I am. But the moment I think about going into the workshop at the moment, I'm just like, what's it for? Like, I always think to myself, everyone says like, oh, as you said, Jamie, as well, you know, the first 2 years, if you can make it past that, it's fine. But then you also think to yourself, that's all well and good, but when do I get my break? Like, when does the 2 years actually end? You know, and then I hear this thing about, well, if you can make it 5 years, you can make it.
I think the problem
can you
is,
wait 5 years?
You know, you're tied up in a situation with something that's ever changing. The goalposts are always moving with social media and things like that. It's the business is different. You know, it's very difficult to reconcile those two separate things of having a social media presence that drives the business and trying to run a traditional furniture making business in a situation like the pandemic. You know, so you're in a very difficult situation all round. And you know, like I used to run a business. I closed it down in 2009, and it is difficult, and it is relentless, and it is constant work, a constant effort, and you don't really get a break. You don't really get the same thing that you get with you know, being an employee, of being able to just switch off at night. You know, you're constantly working, you're constantly putting
especially
effort
when
in.
especially when you get one of the emails like, oh, I'm not happy with this piece, I want a refund, and just like,
absolutely. And there isn't that opportunity to switch off and go, oh, it's Friday now, I won't deal with that until Monday, because it's there and it's niggling away at you, and you're thinking, well, this is on me, you know, especially if it's something that you've created. There is always that.
See, I don't know about you guys, like, but I used to think I was pretty good at like compartmentalizing, like just.
Yeah,
but then I got to the point. Well, I don't know. For teaching, it might be very different. I don't know.
But teaching all the things I've made or done, kind of, I've done a bit of kind of photography for other people, and no, I'm not good at I'm not good at compartmentalizing anything really.
Yeah, I used to think that I could do that, and then it's like I'd get in, and then you know, you'd be like, I would be sitting like last night. This is a case in point. I was sitting down last night, just made dinner, had dinner. I was just like, oh, no, I've actually got to send an invoice that I was meant to send on Friday, and then it's just like, I don't want to do this because I'm working all day. I don't like my working hours are from 8 till 5. After 5, I don't want to work. But especially as a small business, if an inquiry comes in at say 6 or 7 at night, you know, you want to be seen to be proactive. So you respond, and then it's only afterwards or the next day that you think to yourself, hold on, if I wrote an email to my phone provider or my internet provider and said my thing's broken, I need it fixed, they're not going to respond to me until the next day.
Yeah.
So why am I doing it?
But then in the same breath, in that sort of situation, they also have you know, 24/7 support. So, you know, that was my business, being in support, you know, and in that sort of situation, you might get a phone call at 11 o'clock at night saying it's broken. This needs to be working by tomorrow, you know. And in the same sense with, you know, with a sales inquiry from someone who's probably emailed you from a work email address, you know, they're probably not going to be too worried about, you know, needing that invoice or needing that quote response back at 8 p.m. or something like that. But at the same time, if someone rings you and goes, "Look, Tyler, this is, I've just gone to put something on this table. I've got people coming round tomorrow, and I've just put this thing on this table, and the table leg's just fallen off." That's a completely different ballgame. There, that's a completely different situation. To,
I'd be like, "Did you put an elephant on it?"
But that's the thing is, there's different levels of inquiry, and some people might say, well, if you're running a business, you have a business phone, a business number, a business email. You get to the end of your day, you switch them off, and then you switch them back on again the following day and deal with whatever has happened overnight. And then there are other people who are attached to all of it constantly, and you have to make that decision between, are you the type of person who can deal with that, who can deal with an emergency out of business hours, or whether you are the type of person who needs to, for their own well-being, to switch off, and that's why some people have business managers, and
I used to have a media company that looked after all my social media, and then they would do my emails as well, so they gave me like virtual assistants and stuff. But then it was so daft, because I was still logged into my emails, so I would still check my emails when they came through before they saw them, and I would have responded before they saw them, because they check 3 times a day. But I was still doing it, and it's like my social media things would get posted, but at the wrong times. So or words would be spelt wrong. So I would find myself going in there and editing it and doing it, and then I just literally woke up one day. I was like, why am I paying £400 a month for something that I'm doing anyway? And then when I came to cancel my contract, they said, "Oh, you still got to pay for a month." And I was like, "But you're not doing anything for me." And I was like, "But it's on the terms and conditions." And I was just like, right. And then it was a case of, whilst they asked one of the ladies that was doing my media, she said, "Can I make some shells for her?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll make the shells," because they were still my media people and I was doing it. And I got a message the other day saying, "I've gone to put the shelf up, but the brackets don't fit." And I was like, "When you came to the shop, the brackets fit perfectly. I think you drilled the holes in the wrong place on the wall." But they expect me to go round to do it, even though it was free. And that, so I said to them, I was like, "Yeah, but it's going to cost you like 250 quid for me to come to you." And they said, "But it will only take you 2 minutes." I was like, "But you've got the cheek to invoice me for 400 quid for something you've never done, that you haven't done, whereas I invoice you for work you want me to do, but don't want to pay me." I was like, "Nah, that's not how it goes." And then I just told them I went on holiday for 2 weeks, but I haven't. So I really hope they're not watching this YouTube. Probably not, actually.
Yeah, it's all right. Andy will tag them when we do the show notes. To be fine.
Yeah.
It's Real Simple Things is the handle.
Never heard of him. Yeah.
No.
Well, so things we've heard of. Yeah.
Go on, Andy. I think we both have the same.
I was going to say, we've been going for a couple of hours. I know you want to you need your beauty sleep. What's been grabbing your attention? Yeah, is there kind of anything you've been working towards, or something you've seen, or something you've kind of been that's kind of made you go,
"Oh"? What's been grabbing my attention? It's really weird, but I've become I'm watching a lot more. I watch a lot of Japanese furniture on YouTube, just because I find it quite calming. But the thing that's been grabbing my attention recently is I don't actually know. I think I've been watching more people make furniture to learn different techniques and then putting them into practice. But I think that's what's been grabbing it. Also, what grabbed my attention the other day, as I said, is this podcast. So I listen to very relaxing music when I'm in the workshop, and I've recently started listening because I don't listen to my podcast back, and I should, but I do listen to your podcasts.
Oh, nice to hear.
And that has been grabbing my attention because they are like a few hours long. You can just put it on, and it feels like the thing that I like about this show is that you feel that you're in the conversation. So sometimes when I'm listening to it, I feel like I'm answering. I'm like, hold on, they can't hear me.
I was going to say, you're chatting with us. That's exactly the sort of thing. It's just hanging out with a bunch of mates.
Yeah, it's about a conversation. It's very much for us. It's about having a conversation and not an interview.
Yeah. No, I think I've really, really, really enjoyed it. I mean, I've waited months to get on this show. So I mean,
there's a long list of people that we get complaints about. Yeah, why is so on before me?
Yeah.
We get complaints like that.
It's the fact that you're taking your time out on a Sunday, to do something like this it is entertainment purposes, to entertain.
It's purely selfish as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's something as well, is when you see people like yourself or one of the podcast I'm on, or any other show or people doing stuff, is I don't think people appreciate just how much time goes into this. Because it's 2 hours 20 minutes, that we've potentially been away from our families talking,
plus the 20 minutes of pre-show.
Plus the 20 minutes pre-show, plus the editing, plus whatever goes on.
That's an additional 12 seconds at least.
Yeah, and I don't think people necessarily appreciate it, but it is appreciated. So just keep up the good work, because it's definitely a podcast worth following.
Thank you, Tom.
Cheers.
And that's Jamie, coming from me.
Jamie, what's been grabbing your attention this week?
Not a massive amount. I'm still sort of riding the waves of just trying to recover and stuff. Really, I'm still going through my treatment of my sinuses and stuff. So I'm actively not doing a lot to just try and give myself a fighting chance. So I've been doing a little
rest.
Yeah, which is really weird concept for me. But I've been doing over this weekend. I've done a little bit of leather work. I've done a little bit of planning a Fills with Tools treasure trade project, a bit of sketching and stuff, and I've been doing a little bit of IT techie stuff, recovering some data off a laptop for an old mate and stuff. So nothing maker related as such, just more ancillary maker related stuff, playing and stuff really. Other than what I believe you're just about to talk about, Andy, with your attention for this week.
My attention this week. Well, obviously, Tuesday night we were on Crosscut Podcast. I would encourage people to go and listen to that.
One of the greatest podcasts you'll ever listen to for the first episodes.
Even with us on it.
Then if you can push through the first 2 seasons, you're onto a winner.
Yeah, I could listen to that yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday when it came out. Yesterday afternoon. I listened to that. It was strange hearing some Welsh bloke talking. Don't normally listen to that sort of thing.
Yeah, anyone think he was from Liverpool and didn't sound like Paul Hollywood? That's an inside joke there, people. So you have to listen to the podcast to get that joke.
Definitely, yeah. The thing that caught my eye actually the other day, I don't normally look at. When I watch YouTube, I normally get things through my subscriptions. I don't normally go to the homepage, but for some reason the other day I went to the homepage. Whether it was just kind of just quickly trying to get onto YouTube to find something, and something caught my eye, which a channel I'd not seen before called. I didn't write it down. I need to move it because I didn't think. Aging Wheels. Not one I've come across before. I think it's an American guy, but there were some cars. It was essentially he'd taken a child's go-kart, but by go-kart I don't mean kind of the conventional British go-kart with pedals. Kind of a motored, a petrol engine go-kart, kind of little engine at the back with a kind of, it had a kind of roll cage, and he was electrified it. But he had
like a Baja type.
Yeah, but he talked about some of the. It basically didn't work properly. It was already his second attempt. His first attempt didn't work at all, and he basically went through what it was quite fascinating. It was about half an hour, so it was fascinating watching all the kind of problems he had. He literally started by making his own battery pack, and it's like he made this battery pack, and he cut out on his CNC a plywood frame to hold the batteries in place, the cells in place, before soldering them up as a pack. So yeah, I made this and it works, but I didn't like it, so I made this other one out of acrylic and steel instead. It was kind of, there were aesthetic things that made him change, but then there were things that just didn't work because of a bunch of different reasons. And it was a channel I'd not seen before, and it was refreshing and nice. Have a look at some of the other videos on there. I probably wouldn't watch all his videos, but it was actually quite nice to see somebody kind of going, yeah, I did this thing. I've spent weeks and weeks and $1,000 on this, and it doesn't work properly. But it was kind of refreshing to see somebody basically showing a failure. But the steps to it, so I quite like that. So apart from that, yeah, it's been a bit of a week where not lots happened. So maybe next week will be better. It's half term, so hopefully I can get a few things done. I can say that I've been clearing my one tab on Google. I use one tab to kind of keep things.
How many thousands are you down to now?
I'm down to just under 1,400. But considering it was at 2,300 earlier in the week,
that's pretty good going.
I've cleared about 1,000 tabs,
which is
in a week.
Absolutely ludicrous for the average human.
I just favourite stuff if I like it.
Oh, I gave up favourites years ago. Yeah, I gave up on favourites years ago.
Yeah, same.
And bookmarks. One tab is brilliant, but you've got to keep it under control.
I think you go outside of control.
Yeah. So when you go to videos, the video's no longer there. It's kind of like, well, with it. And of course, once you've opened it, you kind of go, what video was that? Because the title was on the thing, but as soon as you've opened it and it says video not available, it doesn't even tell you who it's from. And it's like, what was I trying to watch? Because that must have been interesting, but now it's disappeared.
A guy make a go-kart out of steel and acrylic.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. On
that note, shall we thank our guest, who we never actually got around to introduce?
Obviously, we've mentioned Crosscut podcast, but where else can people find you, Tyler?
So I can be found on YouTube. My page is slowly growing, and I host a show on there called Whatever This Is, where I give you woodworking hits and tips. And then I can be found on Instagram at Bears Workshop UK. And yeah, you'll see my narcissism in full swing there.
Well, we'll put links to all those in the show notes, which for the benefits of people listening, if you haven't paid attention to the kind of show notes before, the show notes are always on YouTube. It's the description on YouTube. That's where I put the show notes.
And they're generally quite extensive and thorough.
Yeah. Anything we mentioned, might not mention some of the companies we slagged off this evening.
We didn't slag any off. We only did one.
Not really. Yeah. So won't tag people that might get offended. But other than that, we generally try to tag people. Anyone we mention tends to get tagged. Although we might not tag Baz, because and stuff and scroll saws.
No, I think maybe we should tag him just so he gets like a bit of he's narcissistic feel for the evening.
Well, he's not been tagged before, so yeah.
Yeah, not that he hasn't left like the last 12 messages.
Right. On that note, I shall hit end broadcast.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, next week we've got. I'm trying to think who we got next week. Can you remember who we got next week, Jamie? I know we've got Kev Sharkey.
We've got Trouble next week.
Yeah.
Oh, he's good. He was my first guest on the podcast. He's a good guy.
We got him next week and talk about. I think we'll be talking possibly about beards. I think that'll be one of the things to talk about.
It's a good, well-timed beardy episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. On that note, bye, folks.
Good night all.